The time
Daylight
change.
saving time.
Yeah, but
Hello, good evening, Las. Good evening, John. Good
Respect
evening,
Mikey.
everyone, and welcome to another Sunday at Waterhouse Vibes. Brethren, the last time we met, let's bring in this in. Good afternoon, Maxine. Welcome.
Bless.
The last time
Yes,
we
yes, Max, you know, go on.
There.
Yes, you see it.
why?
the last time
A next one out in Alaska now. How are you there? How are you there?
I just
Oh,
came
yeah.
from outside. Outside me there.
You're most
Yeah, but-
outside.
that's good. But I try to introduce. I said last time we were here, last Sunday, most of us, I believe, figured that the outcome of the American
You're breaking
election.
up. You're breaking up. Something wrong with your mic.
I'm saying that the last time we were here, most of us had an expectation that Miss Harris would win the American election. Wednesday, the whole world wake up to a new reality. Donald Trump is now president of the United States.
Mikey,
And-
Mikey,
Yes, brother.
I get a echo from your mic and you're breaking up terribly.
That's so much better.
No, it's not better.
No? How about that?
Talk again.
Yeah. How about that? Are you hearing now?
You still have a
Yeah,
little
echo.
echo thing.
I don't know where that's coming from.
Continue now, make we hear.
Yes. So Wednesday, the world wake up a new reality. Donald Trump is now the president of the United States. Folks, I can tell you here in America, it's not a happy place. I wake up Wednesday morning and I went outside and traveled around, and you could tell it's like there's a sadness in here that Trump is now the president. I don't know what it means for us, but I know certainly a lot of us are now thinking, what next? What next? Today, I want us to explore that. How is it done? How did Trump carry out this massive comeback? What were the opportunities? Did we see it as coming? I know certainly a lot of the polls were off. I didn't predict that Trump would make gains in terms of the votes, which he did. He mobilized the male Latino community, and he really made some important gains. What does it mean going forward for the future? Some are saying that, well, he's going to implement all that he promised. I am not so sure. So I am searching for clarification, education around this election. And I talked with John and asked him to, John, give us some insight into what happened. So what I'm going to do now, we turn this over to John. John, what is your insight?
Yeah, you're breaking up. I hope I sound better than you.
Yes, go ahead.
Yes. So greetings, members of the panel, and to those listening in. I want to say, first of all, that hindsight is 2020 vision. It's great to be talking about this now. But I think if we reflect before the election, it can be said that one thing united everybody. And that is the fact that no one, absolutely no one, predicted nor expected that Trump would win by such a massive margin. So even those who predicted that Trump would win, no one predicted that it would be by this margin, by what we can call, in Jamaica, we like to be very dramatic when it comes to election results. And we would call this one a landslide. Nobody predicted that. What was predicted, for those who predicted that Trump would win, we said it was going to be by a close margin. Most people expected that it would be a tight race, and that even if one side won, it would be a 1 or 2 points margin. As it turns out, Trump has won by a significant margin, and it's true to say that all of what they call it, the battleground states, Georgia, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Arizona,
North Carolina,
Nevada, North Carolina, and Wisconsin, Trump has won all of them. It's also true to say that Trump has won the Senate and the House. So this victory cannot be underestimated. And those of us who want to predict what is going to happen, I have ideas I'd like to share. However, I think the most important question is why? Why did the elections turn out the way that they did? I'd like to point out a number of factors. It's really not it's not one thing. If I were to put my finger on the most important thing, I put my finger on the inadequate and unsatisfactory polling that took place and has been taking place in the United States. And why is this? What's the problem with the polling? The problem with the polling is that the polls, and when I use the word polls, these are polls carried out by private organizations, but almost all of them by big media houses. ABC have their poll, NCB have their, NBC have their poll, etc. And then you have private companies, non-profit amount of polling. What's the problem with the poll? For 3 straight elections, the polls have underestimated the Trump vote. And the reason for this is that the polls are geared to the Democratic Party in that they are geared to the urban centers. Some of us who have any knowledge of polling know that polling generally takes place especially in today's world, we call people on the phone or we send them a text message. The old time days, we used to have a people go around with a piece of paper and a clipboard, and you knock on the door and you ask them question and you tick off. Those days are over. Most of the polls that take place now, and by now I mean in the modern world, even in Jamaica, are using some level of technology which I just described. The problem is that the hardcore vote for Trump is predominantly a rural vote. People in the countryside living in small rural townships. Whereas for the Democratic Party, the core vote is an urban vote. In Georgia, which Trump won, I wrote it down here, he won by 116,000 votes. You remember last time Trump called and said he wanted 11,000 votes. That's how close it was. This time is 100,000 votes more. And why is this? Because the people who support him came out in their numbers in the rural townships of Atlanta and other counties to vote. And if we go through all of the main battleground states, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Arizona, etc., it is clear that the rural people, I don't like to use the word bush people, but I want us to understand that this is essentially where those voters are coming from. I use that term advisedly. I don't mean nothing negative by it. I'm not going to use the term that what's her name used in 2016.
Clinton.
Clinton used the word undesirables, which is I'll comment on that in a minute, because these so-called undesirables came out to show what they think of the Democratic Party. What are some of the ongoing factors that help to drive this vote? So we begin with the core element of it being unscientific and also it being prejudiced towards the urban centers. The second big reason, and I'm not using numbers to suggest reason of importance, but just to tell you what, while more women may have come out for Kamala, for Harris, the changeover or the turnout of men was significantly more for Trump. I had the figures last night, but I cannot find the paper I wrote them down on. Whereas Trump managed to increase that vote by X amount, it was almost tripled in this election. And Trump was able to go on many, I heard of the 8 important broadcasts in the United States that appealed to men. The one that was most important had a listenership of 56 million. I think the name of the guy is Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan. Trump was on that show. So that helped to bring out even more men. The second reason, or the third element, is that while Harris may have brought an increase in women, she failed to appreciate the importance of mothers. So that in the exit polls, what was revealed is that the concern of mothers today is that their sons are at home. Their sons are facing bigger hardship. Can't buy a house, can't buy food, can't pay for gas. So the mothers came out in significant numbers in support of Trump. In addition, the early voting, you remember in the last election, early voting was a curse word for the Republican Party and Trump. Every early voting was a potential thieving vote. That concept, that idea was spun on its head. So that in many of these rural areas, at least 40%, 30 to 40%, 1/3 of voters voted before election day due to early voting. I also want to mention the Latino vote. We heard on the news how the Latinos, despite the outburst at that meeting in New York about Puerto Rico, and and the fact of the matter is that many of the Latino vote are people running from Cuba or Venezuela and other so-called left countries that the Americans are squeezing. And those who come here, they are very happy to lock the door behind them. So that some of us think that because we are immigrants, we are open-minded and we say, oh, we will allow people to come behind us like oh, nearly everybody in the US is an immigrant. Not nearly, virtually all, except for the American Indian. That did not hold true in this election. Trump was able to secure a fairly solid support, particularly in states in Florida, for example. Some communities are predominantly Cuban in the Miami area, Miami-Dade County, and Venezuelan. Up here we have a significant number of Venezuelan. And during the last outburst by the US government about the election in Venezuela being unfair, these are the only two places that the Venezuelan people who are overseas, many of them well-to-do, middle class, white or red skin, as we call them in Jamaica, are living in these cities, and they are firmly in support of Trump because of the anti-communist and dictatorial, that they are against dictatorship, they are against communism. The other thing that I want to say is the prevalence of disinformation. Here is the problem. When the big news media, CBS and NCB, CNN, go in the communities that we spoke about, the Trump strongholds, and say that they're doing polls, what do you think the people in those areas, how do you think they respond? They either say that they're not voting, they're not interested, they're not going to turn out, because these companies represent who? The fake media. There is a block from by these agencies to actually get feedback at the grassroots from these communities, these Trump supporting communities. So that's part of the dilemma. The gap only widens. The fifth or sixth factor is racism. There can be no doubt that a deep underpinning of the outbursts in support of Trump is based on, first and foremost, the reason when he came into power the first time, it was as a backlash to Obama. How dare Obama? Remember, Obama came and Trump harassed him about his birth, where him come from, the Bertha thing. I only know that term. And here we have now a black woman. So it's not just one negative, it's two. Coming back into office, and there, to me, I think there was a definite what I call a reaction on by those who feel that una gone too far, una have too much power, and blocking that. So those to me are some of the fundamental factors which undermine, which explain, I'm sorry, the outpouring of support by Trump forces. What can we expect? Well, I was making a list last night of Trump has 7 things that he has said he's going to do. I have little doubt that he will remain true to this course. One of Trump's most important criticism of the existing political elite is that they don't keep their promises. Well, I should point out, obviously, the Democratic Party, focusing on their concept of who the people are voting for, would emphasize things that are of no relevance or little relevance. So things that they considered critical, like democracy and freedom versus cost of living and immigration, it's spin on its head. When you do a poll poll, what's important to you amongst those rural people in the bush? What come up number 1 is the economic factors. Cost of living, mortgage, rent, gas, and immigration. Whereas when you do the same poll, what is important to you amongst the urban middle class, working class, it's what the Democrats were focusing on, which is really missed the boat, obviously. I mean, the more we hear the results, is the more we can see how extensive the gap is between what they were doing and what Trump was doing. I mean, Trump spent, as I said before, he was on 5 or 6 of the 8 shows that broadcast to 35-year-old to 50-year-old men, and some of them with huge listenership. Okay, so let's talk about what to expect very quickly. I don't know if I need to go there.
John, before we get into that, can you just pause and let me hear some reaction from Maxine and Plus to what you just said? Because what next piece I want to explore separately. Okay, last Maxine, what's your take? You heard John put forward a number of ideas as to what caused the election to move in that direction. But what do you guys think?
Well, it didn't cause it, careful.
Factors, those factors.
Yeah.
Last,
One of the things that I looked at was the amount of people that voted for Trump in this election and the amount of people that voted for Trump in the last election, and the amount of people who did the same for Biden and the Democratic Party in the last election. And what I realized is that so far, Trump has polled around 73 million votes in his victory. That is based on calculations so far. And Harris has polled around 68 million votes in this election. And when you compare it to the last election, Trump had polled in his last to Biden, he polled 74 million votes. And Biden had polled around 81 million votes. So what we're seeing is that in terms of the actual number of people voting for Trump, it's not a real increase in the number of people voting for Trump now versus the last election. What we see is less people voting for the Democratic Party this time around. So we have to ask ourselves, why less people are voting for the Democratic Party at this time? And if we look at it carefully, we see that the Democratic Party for a number of years, based on a number of polls, have shown that there is a trend wherein the Democratic Party is consistently losing voters, and the Republican Party has been gaining in the number of people voting, coming out to vote for it. However, the fact that Trump has not gained any significant more voters than his last election is showing that the trend of people shifting to the Republican Party is not what is accounting for his victory. No. What is more accounting for his victory is the lack of people voting for the Democratic Party. And we have to ask ourselves, what has been happening to create this situation where people, so what it means is that people have not, in this election, less people have turned out to vote for the Democratic Party than turned out to vote in the last election. Before Kamala Harris came along, we saw that Biden had become very unpopular. Biden had become unpopular for a number of reasons. One, I think coming out of the COVID period, the strides that although the economy recovered pretty well from the COVID, the economy still had not recovered to the point where a lot of people felt satisfied that they were making economic strides in the country. That is ordinary people. And while this was the situation for ordinary people, working people, and lower middle class people in America, what we saw happening was that the richest people in America were getting richer and richer and richer. That was the reality right across America. While the lower class people were struggling to put food on the tables, we saw that the richest people were doing pretty well. Biden had promised, one of Biden's promises was that he was gonna tax these rich people, these super rich people, right? To compensate for whatever slowdown was taking place in the economy. And that was not to be. I mean, the tax on the super rich only marginally increased under Biden. I think one of the next thing that was happening, and I think the most significant thing that caused Biden to lose support was his outright support for Netanyahu. While he was saying one thing in public, himself and Blinken, they were saying one thing in public as if they were not supporting Netanyahu. The reality was they were supporting Netanyahu with all the resources, all the money, all the bombs, all the military support, all the intelligence support that they could offer. They offered it to Netanyahu. And it is my belief that since the war in Vietnam, I think the Gaza issue has galvanized the whole America, and it has caused their conscience, the whole conscience of America, to be out front, right? Just as how public opinion was affected by the Vietnam War, it is the same way that I believe that the war in Gaza has affected public opinion in America. And Biden was at the receiving end of this because of his almost total support. When you look at the fact that Netanyahu was destroying Gaza, Biden was sending bunker buster bombs, bombs that they used in the hills of Afghanistan. Biden and Blinken were sending bunker buster bombs to obliterate homes and villages in Gaza and in Lebanon. And they lost a lot of support for that. When Kamala Harris came in, even though she energized a lot of the support of the Democratic Party, there was not sufficient time for the Democratic Party to make up enough ground to win back some of these supporters, especially people to the left of center in the Democratic Party. A lot of these people were disgusted with the support, the genocidal support that Biden was and the Democratic Party was giving to Netanyahu against the Palestinian people. I think also what happened was that Harris had a difficulty in separating herself from the policies of Biden. Even up to a week before the election, journalists were asking Kamala Harris, what is it that you are going to do differently from Biden? How do you establish the difference between what you are coming with and what Biden is doing? And Kamala Harris was stumbling that this is a week before the election, you know. Kamala Harris was stumbling to find the words to explain how she's different from Biden. And a lot of voters who were upset with Biden could not establish that difference in their mind and see how they could expect any different from her actions, right? If she won the election. The Republicans and Trump capitalized on that. Trump consistently said, she is Biden. There's no difference. She was part of the failed policies of Biden because the Republican Party recognized that Biden had lost the support of the majority of the American people. And if they could tie Kamala Harris to Biden, they could reduce her impact in this election. And that's exactly what they did. Another thing that I found interesting about the Democratic Party approach was that, and John mentioned it in the very last of his presentation, was that the things in an election in America and in most places, we know that people's standard of living is always one of the most important aspect of any election. How people gonna get by, how they're gonna put food on the table. The emphasis of the Democratic Party was on the issue of reproductive rights and the whole question of democracy. Reproductive rights was a big concern in the election to many people. The issue of democracy was an issue of concern to many people. But in dealing with reproductive rights and the issue of democracy, they failed to focus on what mattered most to people, which is the state of the economy and how people is going to get by in the country. I think what part of the strategy of the Democratic Party was to say that Trump is an existential threat to many communities, especially minority communities across the country. And they try to whip up anti-Trump support along that line and expect that people would see that threat, that existential threat, as the most significant thing that they should vote against. Right? And they thought that that would rally people to the vote because people would be concerned about democracy and their freedom if Trump came to power, and that a lot of immigrant communities would have difficulty surviving under a Trump administration. And in so doing, they paid less regard to the economic realities of the people in America and the issue of the genocidal behavior of the Israelis and the support, the almost total support that was coming from the Democratic Party. That's my initial views.
Maxine, what's your take?
Yes, I think we have to remember that this was really Biden's election, and the issues, it's not, even though it became a Kamala Harris in the last 2 or 3 months, that was a big mountain for Kamala to brand herself in a matter of 19 weeks with an issue that was, a platform. They know that Trump was campaigning for 9 years, and she in 19 weeks, and she didn't really have, to me, she didn't really have a significant profile in the Biden administration. I hardly heard about her. in anything major. So the greatest thing for me, even as a black woman, was that she, it was good to see the optics were good, but as it was going on, you could see the pushback in relation to what the Biden presidency meant to the electorate. It's I guess you'd have to incorporate COVID and the impact of COVID on the economy. I know as someone going to the supermarket, it is crazy. You know what I mean? In terms of the buying power of your money. You know what I mean? Like it's like nothing. And like your rents, everything it's off the roof. And so there's a lot of, as has been said before, there's a lot of dismay in the economy. And even though we wanted to hold on to, as they say, ideals, the bread and butter pushed everything over the line. Because even in a place like New York, that's a blue state, it was the most Republicans ever voted. I mean, victory that day, I don't say it's Republicans, it doesn't have to be Republicans that voted for Trump. And the Latino vote, I think, is very significant because even though they would say, okay, as Black people, we have a certain minority concept of self in America, but the Latino doesn't have that concept. They're generally conservative people, and even in the neighborhood that I am, the Pakistanis and the Indians are also, they came into the neighborhood, and while the Black Caribbean vote went for the Democrats, these immigrants voted Republican, and they voted Republican before the Trump issue. They were voting Republican in the by-election for Senate and House or within the states. So the Latino personality, to think that it is a minority personality and will go, in a minority way was actually shown that that is not so. And a lot of the immigrants that are coming in illegally, the Latinos that came here legally are actually opposed to them coming in. So whereas the perception might be, well, oh, the Latino are gonna vote on behalf of the immigration issue, the Latinos who have the voting power would actually vote with the Republicans because they see the immigration, the illegal immigration, as a threat to their legal
Well-being.
migration and their status in the States. So there is the whole woman thing, like I said, that was, America is a anti-woman power scenario. It has proven time and time again because you have seen women come to power in various European countries, and you never, every time that comes up, you could just feel the tension even in the voting line. That's what I'm saying. Like, they ain't gonna vote for, when you come to go and write down and make your mark, I saw the
finger joke, your finger stop.
you know, so so it would have, my mantra for Kamala was win, lose or draw. I was proud that her, as a Jamaican descendant, was running for presidency. It's interesting too, in the Indian world, they're very much now for Vance's wife, because as you know, Vance, the vice president under Trump, his wife is full Indian. And she's getting all kind of like, kudos from the Indian community for being the second lady in the White House, And even when I saw Trump nominate Susan Wiles as the first female chief of staff, I just looked at all of the weirdness, you know what I mean, of what is really occurring, because it seems like the Republican Party did a lot for women. You know what I mean? It didn't come out they're winning or how they're handling it as being anti-woman. In the sense of under the Biden administration, you post Obama, I think a lot of the white belly, the white reaction to a black president, and not even so much a black president because his mother was white, but Michelle Obama, the kind of vitriol, the kind of negativity that went against Michelle, you could see the American not, in the mind, in that Freudian or psychological self, they would not want that to happen again. You know what I mean? That, like I said, when it went to the vote, that kind of psychological thing would come to the fore. And you saw, like, the pushback for affirmative action, the pushback, this is under Biden. This is not just under Democrat Republic. You saw that there has been a major pushback in the American society against the affirmative
That's right.
platform for the African American people, and a lot has to do with that. Those black people in the White House. It was, it's still in their psyche. So, as black people and Caribbean people, um, because we are black, different from, like I said, a Latino who, half of them, like in Miami, think they're white as well. You know what I mean? And they do really vote Republican. We just have to know that we're going to go through a period, where I know in the earlys, you had a great migration from the south to the north, because of these type of anti racial undertones. Um, I'm looking, to observe what is going to be the collective reaction of the black people. Are they going to stop buying things? Because I hear that is our buying things that is running most of the consumption, most of the money is being made from black consumption, How are we going to protect ourselves and our communities in this um, period? I think a lot of the things that Trump wants are what they want. The economy may rail against it. I already saw that people working with Trump are, putting the math together to say that some of the things that he wants to achieve, the money isn't there to do it, And so I think the economy is going to to hit them. I think the weather, the cost of climate change and the cost to certain states like Florida, where the hurricanes just come and mash up, places. What I see happening with the weather and the denial of the weather, but then the cost. I see what just happened in North Carolina. I have friends that moved there from New York, and they're completely, you know, lost. They're wiped out. So I think we're going to see a lot of migratory issues. The people coming in that they call illegal immigration is related to economic issues in the countries that they're leaving. People jumping on boats. I think they had a similar thing going into Europe. I don't know we haven't heard much about that migration occurring, but it's not really, it's like you said, what you're going to do, put up walls. You're going to wall yourself in. A lot of these economies are suffering because of the policies, the economic policies derived out of America. You know what I mean? And so, once we get over the political optics of this migration, I don't know what they're gonna do. Start killing the people down there. I don't know. You understand what I'm saying? Like we was watching what they were doing in Gaza. You understand? On TV, you just saw this bombing, and you have to get used to tolerating this type of human um, destruction on behalf of your dining table. If what I am eating is related to my government having to bomb you to put food on my table, I don't know if those are the type of, when they say America is going into isolationism, it's going to affect the world economy, you know. It's a new world order, in fact. I don't know Elon Musk coming in and their agenda for the world in terms of digitization and transformation of the economy into robotic AI, means that a lot of people are not going to be employed. What is going to happen to those people? How are they going to be absorbed? A whole new set of social problems seem on the horizon, but Hollywood, the movie industry has already given us lots of movies. One that comes to mind is The Hunger Games, where the societies thought about by, say, Elon Musk has to now go to battle with the underground societies of people that this technological age has, disrupted. So, yes, we just have to, um, as the Harris says, we have to just fight. Fight for what is our rights and fight to be moral and see how it's gonna work. It might be the decline of a civilization. Maybe this is just a steps towards the decline of the American space. We come here out of Jamaica looking for a better um economic environment. Nothing says that the American economy has to advance. It's a consumerism economy. It's based on people purchasing goods and services. So, for me, it's interesting. I mean, it would be interesting to look at what's going to happen in Jamaica um, based on this trending. You had a criminal person who was being sentenced in court and it didn't matter what that is. So politically, if you want to win an election, you have to, like, I guess, go to your ground game. You know, you can't go to your PR game and say this person is this person is that. You have to get more granular and hit the ground. So it was already trending what we're up against, certainly as for me as a Black conscious person. I saw all the trends towards a lot of rights being rolled back, reverse racism, all kind of things trending. I don't know if that was really from when Trump was in before and they sent certain people at the Supreme Court level. And so it'd be interesting now, the Supreme Court, the Congress, the House, and the presidency all aligning. I don't think in the history of America or for a long, long time did you have such a alignment, like you don't have any
Opposition.
protection, The other day I said, let me go and research how much Black people are in the army. What's the percentage of Black people that are in the USA Army? Because I do remember coming up and the heavy recruitment of, Black people in America to join the army, Because I'm wondering, you have to be wondering, because like I said, you never yet seen such an alignment of forces in the American system, where you have the Supreme Court, the Congress, the Senate, and the presidency, in such an accord. So interesting times ahead.
Certainly, I want to agree with all the sentiment expressed so far, but I think something is missing, and that is since the 1980s, the global economy been going through a series of restructuring. This liberalism, and I think that is what happened in America. A lot of change take place over the years in the American economy, but nobody paid attention to those folks who were disrupted and removed from the workforce. Nobody paid attention to that, and that is what I think motivate a lot of the folks to vote the way they did. Because I live in a blue state. I live in a blue state, you see? And I had a very difficult time getting to the point of voting for the Democratic Party. Why? Because of the Gaza issue. I was one of those who felt that the Democratic Party or Harris should have been more forceful in the demand for a Palestinian state. They talk about two-state solution, but no emphasis was placed on a Palestinian state. As a result, the Democratic Party lost a significant percentage of the Arab votes in Michigan. Okay, that's one impact. The change in the economy, we see it in Jamaica also. Whereby people coming out of college, train, and all of that, and the type of job they end up with is to work in some sweatshop, which they call business processing centers. Yeah, and that thing really impact people's life. People go through training and come out, and there's no work for them. Here in America, we're having the same problem. People coming out of school, but they can't work in the field that they are in. You understand? They have to move something else. And I think that is what motivates most of the voters. Another thing I think happened is the Democratic Party changed also. It relied mainly on consultants and others rather than putting boots on the ground. Yes, there were some boots on the ground. I got invited to go do some door knocking, but from our experience in organizing, door knocking is just a small part of organizing people. You understand? Another significant thing that I think contribute to the voting is that if you look at the vote results, it's just the West Coast and the East Coast. Just the West Coast and the East Coast, the Democratic Party secure a significant amount of votes. Yeah. So for me, I am more interested in what lessons can we learn from this, because I do not think that the American people is different from the Jamaican people. The Jamaican working class is different from the American working class. Yes, in terms of some respect, yes, like development or what have you. But the liberal economy, those of us who live in liberal economies must realize that change has been taking place for a number of years now, and nobody pay attention to the victims of these changes. You understand? If you want a job right now, you better know some social media and manipulate social media in order to get a job. What about those who are not trained in God? These are the questions I think the Democratic Party need to really sit and look at. How do we engage the working class in this country and in Jamaica? How do we do it? Certainly, the social media can be beat and the end all of the engagement. So John, you talk about next step. Where we go from here? You know, what are your ideas, bro? In terms of the next step, what do we do?
Before John comes on, I just want to make one point. The Republican Party winning does not mean that the people who voted for them are going to win.
No,
Yeah,
I'm not
you
saying.
understand what I'm saying?
No, that's not what I'm saying.
I'm saying just to say that the election in relation to the people, it doesn't mean that either one of them, the one that won or the one that lost, can resolve the shift in the way that the world is running technologically. You understand? In terms of making a lot of people's jobs non-existent, and there's no place to absorb them. That's what we have to be, as you were talking, I was saying, so even the Republican Party winning is not a guarantee for all those people that vote
No.
that there can be a delivery. You understand? Like things is going to be better for that class, whether they are
No,
Democrat or Republican.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying
No,
that
I'm just adding to your
the
point.
organizers.
She's not responding to your point, She's
Okay.
making a general point.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Yes, John.
Well, let me just agree with what everybody has said. I mean, it's a matter of what each of us identify as critical, and to say that the way that the media and the reality is that whatever Trump did in 2016, those 4 years, what you have today is a similar Trump without guardrails. So think of a little baby growing up, trying to walk, and you have a thing. The term them use is guardrail. Guardrail means something that can block you from drop. Trump have no guardrail. The Senate is his. The House is his. The Supreme Court is his, and we will know within the next 2 weeks the nature of the
Beast.
cabinet. And I don't see any reason to believe things are going to be any different. And therefore, the question becomes, how do we respond? And by we, I mean the people as a whole. Because as Maxine said, some of the policies that Trump expects to put in are going to have some negative consequences. The one that comes first to mind is the expulsion of whether it's 10 million, 5 million, 3 million immigrants. What's the consequence of that? First of all, the social consequence is going to be the breakup of many, many families. Children from their mothers, mothers from their husbands, husbands from their children, etc. So there is a political consequence of that, a social consequence. If you remember, when he was in power the last time, there was considerable report about how and where the immigrants, the immigrants were being housed. I have little doubt that this is going to take place again. Also, is the economic consequence. I forget the number, but many of those who are more knowledgeable than me in terms of the economic impact of immigrants in the United States, they work in many jobs at the lower level. Whether it's in California, picking oranges, or in Orlando, you never pass. I said to myself the other day, driving home from an area of Orlando, there's nowhere you're going to see the grass cutting equipment and don't see Mexicans riding on them. You never see grass cutting equipment and see an Indian man. You don't expect to see an Indian man from India riding on the grass cutter, and vice versa. When you see an Indian man, most of the time is an IT man, come to fix your IT or provide service for your IT. That's just the reality. And therefore, I believe, I'm certain that the expulsion of large numbers of these people will have an impact. In addition, my understanding is, and I can't say I've done any research on it, is that some of these expulsions will include people who are naturalized. So those of us, let's put it this way, if the less resistance that is given, whether in law or in protest, to expulsions, is the deeper these expulsions will become. So if the first wave of expulsions, we have silence, ACLU and all these organizations don't do nothing, nobody go on the street, then we can expect that the next wave will be deeper. So that is the first big consequence. The second measure is the tariffs. This was a method that was used before the global economy. Before 20 or 30 years ago, tariffs were the main form of trade. And tariff have a consequence. That is the next country you put the tariff. You put tariff on Europe, you put tariff on China, Europe and China are going to put tariff on you. And the both of them going to be dropping tariff. It's a natural consequence of tariffs that it increase the cost of living. And it can also lead to recession if they are done in such a way that is not managing or without mind to all different sectors of the economy. It is almost certain, in my opinion, if 60% tariffs are dropped, as Trump boasts about, is going to cause significant impact on the U.S. economy. I believe that China is not in the same position as they were 20 years ago. Yes, it's going to have a fallout effect on China because the Chinese economy was growing mainly because it was an export-driven economy. What they're trying to do in China now is make it more consumption-oriented. They have been able to lift so many millions of people out of poverty. These people are buying and selling. They are highly educated. It's not like they have a huge amount of unemployment or people who are not skilled. China is trying to build and create a more consumer-driven economy. But this transformation, this change, under the pressure of the U.S. blockades, restrictions on certain sectors, is going to have some impact. If you listen to the news now, you will see that they anticipate some of these consequences and they have already begun to lay out a national program where people will be getting, just like what Biden did after COVID, to help to alleviate the dislocation that is likely to occur in the economy.
But let me answer this, Chair. Let me answer this, Chair. In Florida, Florida is considered a geriatric economy. Okay, most of the workers down there who involved in THNR, CR, I don't know, help workers, most of them are from the Caribbean. In New England, most of the folks working in this, taking care of elders and mental health, are people from either Jamaica or Haiti. So Trump will have to be careful in terms of with that disruption. Deport a lot of people, but where you going to find workers to work with your seniors and your mental health clients and all that? Where are they going to? Because it's mainly Jamaican and Asians who are doing this work. So they have to be very careful with this mass deportation. Do you think?
Well, I don't know that. I mean, people in those jobs are
Illegal.
usually. I'm sorry.
I said they're legal migrants. Remember, you have
That's
migration.
right. Exactly what I was going to say. They are not really illegal. In those kind of jobs, those people have to get certified and go through a process which inevitably begins with them being legitimate migrants, meaning they've come in through the front door and they have gotten their green card and their whatever, etc., or they're married or whatever. None of them are illegal and they cannot be to work in most of those types of jobs. However, I don't know that Trump is a man who is careful when it comes to announcing or doing something. He's never careful. It's one of the biggest upsets or concerns that you can have. You go bed one night and you wake up the morning and you hear him do something, right? Him do something different or unexpected, what you call careful, uncareful, risky.
John, are you saying that he will move from the deportation of illegal immigrants to legal immigrants and naturalized citizen? Will
No, I'm
those
saying that I have heard that based on the numbers that he has been touting, it must include or it's likely to include naturalized immigrants. But that is not something I'm absolutely certain about. And I have not read every page of the 2025 manifesto or plan.
so we should all be concerned then?
Yeah, I'm only saying I think people who are should be the most concerned are at the basic level of the employment system.
Okay.
So a man who come from Mexico who is doing the grass cutting probably have to be more remember, this is not informed only by economics, it's also informed by race and politics. So if I come from Ukraine, I'm likely to be less. I think how they think is that people from Ukraine, even if they might be helpers, they are white. People from Haiti, and they are helpers, they are black. Are they going to treat the two of them the same? Highly unlikely. Get real. This is who we're dealing with. This is what we're dealing with. So all different considerations will be put into the cap, into the hat, so to speak, to determine what type of, who is the immigrant that the Trump organization is going to be, the Trump government is going to be focusing on.
One question.
Yes.
One question, John. What lesson should the Jamaican politician take from this? Because we are going into an election come next early sometime next year. What lesson should we take from all of this?
Well, the lesson is not about the immigrants or what this government going to do. I think all right-wing governments salute Trump, and they are growing in strength and abundance throughout Europe, in Germany, in France. Right-wing parties are becoming stronger, and in Jamaica we have a right-wing party. The lessons that they will take is, in the short term, those parties have a future. I mean, people who are oriented in that direction will see this as a positive. Isn't that how the normal flow of things go? They have when I use the term short term, for the next 10 years, those kind of parties and that type of system have a future. It's the same, I mean, to be honest, even when I look at the massacre of Palestinian people in the world today, which is something being broadcast on the news, which we see every day on our phones, I have to ask myself, what is the lesson? The lesson is that people who stand up for certain, if you are a native, in certain circumstances that something like this can happen to you. It's sad to say, despite international law, despite the International Criminal Court, those people are being massacred as we speak. Where is it going? It can only go one place. It's not about forming another state. It's about driving them out of land to give land to the Zionists. Settlers are swarming, standing up in line to get Palestinian land. Good land, with house, with view, with look good. Settlers are standing in line to get those houses and land, and therefore the lesson is in the absence of military might, you're going to be subjected to that. I don't know if there's another place on the planet that could happen, but it's certainly happening in Palestine as we speak. So let me contemplate more. I think you're talking about broader lessons, and the only way to cope with an abuse of right is to stand up to it, wherever we are.
For me, John, one of the lessons that I say that we can learn from in Jamaica is the whole question of what is the focus of the politics going into the election. The thing is, for a number of years now, the PNP has been trying to ride on the back of scandals in Jamaica and not so much focusing on the economic,
Organizing on the ground.
the economic realities of the Jamaican people. Right? It's been one of my criticisms of the strategy of the PNP for a number of years. They try to whip up one scandal, and when that scandal it boiled down, they try whip up another scandal, and it's as if they think it is the scandals that is going to bring down the Jamaica Labour Party government. And we're seeing consistently in the polls that the scandals, whatever it is, whether it's around corruption, whether it is around a man beating his wife, whatever it is not those things that are changing the minds of the Jamaican electorate. The important issues are the bread and butter issues, the issues that affect the well-being, how people go and put food on them table, how them youth go and go school, how them go and buy a house, right? Which is the same kind of issues that we see the Democratic Party overlook in this election in America. One other thing I want to raise, which we never talk about, is that I noticed that there's a tendency in the Democratic Party to believe that certain minorities owe them vote. Because they are minorities and they always vote for the Democratic Party, the Democratic Party believes that these minorities owe them. And if them vote otherwise, they should chastise them. And what I've been seeing happening in the media, coming from some members of the Democratic Party and some of their supporters, they have been quick to be picking out certain nationalities and certain minority communities and blaming them for the loss and not talking about the weaknesses and the feelings of the party itself, right? And that's something that I have noticed taking place already. Another thing I want to mention is that a lot of people seem to feel that because Kamala Harris did not win, the whole issue of struggle for rights and justice in America, there's no hope for that. What people have to understand is that voting is just one form of struggle, of decision making. What needs to happen going forward in America, as John raised not too long ago, is that we have to see how the people stand up to whatever Trump and his people want to bring in this new administration. People have to be prepared to take to the streets. People have to be prepared to talk out in the mass organizations. People have to be prepared to talk out and demonstrate on the university campuses. People have to be prepared to talk out on social media and resist. The idea that because the election was lost, that all is lost is not true. There are still avenues for people resist some of the stuff that Trump might want to bring come. And it needs to happen. People need to not feel that struggle under Trump is now a hopeless cause. There are still avenues to
I
continue
don't
the
think,
struggle.
I don't think anyone is thinking that now. I think what's happening right now. Yes, we need to resist and fight. But remember this, there is a fear in this country now, right across the country. There's a fear. It's going to be a challenge to have people mobilize under the threat of fear and deportation. That's going to have an impact on the mobilization of people, you know. So let's wait and see if that manifests itself. A question I want to
I
pose to
wanted to make a point on
go ahead,
the regime changes
go ahead.
based on what happened here. The thought is that regime changes whether on the right or the left. I read an article this morning that wherever you are, if you're on the left or you're on the right, you're going to have a regime change. So I'm saying in the context of Jamaica, Trump's victory is not aligned with Andrew Holness coming back in, because everyone is just like how we spoke about the economy. Everyone, the voter wants change, whether you understand, whether you're going to bring the change or not. He wants an option for change. And so what they're saying is post-COVID and the economic impact that has occurred in every country, there's a regime change. That was another analysis that came forward. So it's not that, oh, it went right, everything's going right. There is just a factor of regime change. So actually, when I read the article this morning, I said, oh, so it looks good for Mark Golding based on this analysis that the people, and there's a sense of that in Jamaica, that I feel that, yeah, we can't change this, we can't change that, but just make a change and make we see what happens. You understand? So I would think Andrew Holness has a lot more work to do based on that notion that regimes are just organically changing themselves?
One point that I want to make too is that I am hoping and I have a feeling that Donald Trump won't, even though, as Maxine correctly pointed out, they are in a situation where all the stars are aligned in their favor. They have the House, they have the Senate, they have the presidency. I am hoping that the fact that the Republican Party is a different Republican Party from when he was in the last time, it will put a break on some of the things that he would love to implement. I'm saying this because if you look at the Republican Party as it is now, as against the Republican Party when Trump was in power, is that it is a more divided Republican Party. The first time around, most Republicans were willing to give Trump the benefit of the doubt and let him do what he wanted to do. Since that time, the Republican Party has been split. We have a strong anti-Trump resistance on one side, and you have a strong pro-Trump portion on the other side. I am hoping that that division in the party will slow down some of the things that Trump has been saying he wants to do. And I believe it will, because a lot of people in the party have seen and experienced the clash between the Trump then and the American society and the world. The Trump then and so I'm expecting that there will be some modification in their approach, how they deal with certain issues, different from how they approached it the last time.
Boy, if it's one thing I disagree with is that. And I'll tell you why. The change in the Republican Party is that the party is the party of Donald Trump. So you call the name of somebody who is in leadership in the party. No. They are hand-selected by Trump. All of those people who question him, who didn't agree with him, who show any form of what he would call disloyalty, have been removed from leadership in the party. So I don't agree with that. I think that Trump has been, the mandate is a mandate that Trump can do with as he believes. And he has said over and over and over what it is he intends to do. What is constraining him is the people and the optics, to use Maxine's term, the optics. So I have little doubt that we are going to be in for a rough time. If you if your back don't tough, you better go to the gym, go lift up some weights and tough up your back, because that is the direction the country is going in. And a lady put it here: "You are fired." That's the
Does
slogan.
anyone does
John,
anyone
John,
know what that 2025? There was a 2025 manifesto
Yeah,
that was being circulated. Huh?
yes. I haven't read it. I have not read it since the last time we looked at it, but I downloaded it onto my hard drive, and that is what I was going to suggest, that we should look at it between now and maybe the next meeting or the following meeting, 2 weeks, because it's a long document. Read it and see what it says, and see, we can each take a different section of it, and instead of all of us reading everything, we can do that too. But I'm happy to read the section on education, since that is my background. And we can agree to look through different sections of it and see what it says. But
Yeah,
what
the
it says,
reason I'm bringing it up is really, as in Jamaica, the political class is a set of elites, regarding like political elites. So both parties have a set of people that are interchangeable, right? One come out, one go in, meaning it's not a disrespect, I'm just describing that it is a class of people. And it would seem to me that what Trump was railing against, not simply for his policies, but the fact that Washington, D.C. had become an establishment in and of itself, like, like a club.
yes, and that's absolutely, that has a lot of truth to it. But Trump is going further.
No, yeah, I'm just bringing it out in the analysis of
Right.
what, you know,
We need to read that document,
document.
because
Yeah.
I think that we are, my basic point is that I don't think that the things that Trump say he's going to do, he's not going to do it. I think it will be illusionary. The other thing I want to say is that the women have a march for early in January. It's part of the struggle, and I don't. So what if the march is small at first? It's likely that it's going to take a little while before all of the forces that stand up to Trump are back on their, to get to 100%. But it's a start. So that is something we should all, in whatever form or way we can. But the way that I look at this is that we can look at the odometer in the car and know how much gas in there. Trump going to be appointing his people. Let's see who he appoints in the next week or two. He will be appointing all of them. Who are the names? Are they people from the 2020? Remember, Trump ball out, him don't know nothing about this 2025 manifesto. Him not part of it. It's not part of his thing. Him don't know nothing about it. And let's see who are his advisors. That will be a key element to determine the extent to which they intend to. Who is going to be his Secretary of Immigration? That's another key one.
let me ask this question. Let me ask this question.
Is Bannon coming back? Bannon just come out of prison the day before election. Steve Bannon come out of prison, and he make the fist like how Trump make the fist. after them shoot after him? And is there a role for these people in the new Trump administration? Is he going to pardon the Proud Boys that were locked up as a result of their activity on January the 6th? He has said he's going to pardon them. Is he going to be exempt from all crimes? Is he going to what is the word?
Pardon.
Self-pardon himself for all of the things. Grabbing pussy, taking money, paying money to prostitute, everything. Is he going to pardon himself for all of these things? Yes.
Well, he can't pardon for the charges. He can't
What?
pardon. He can't pardon himself for those charges in New York. Only if it is federal conviction that he can pardon himself. However, the question I want to ask is this: I hindsight is 2020. Should Biden give up the office much earlier than when he did? He came to us saying that he's going to be a transitional leader. Nothing was done to prepare Kamala for that sort of leadership. And then overnight, it dropped into her lap. Should Biden not give up his desire to be a second president? Should he?
I don't know, but I think the way that it went was that it wasn't simply that Kamala would have been chosen. That I think there are several other Democratic personalities, like Governor Newsom out of California, that would have been in the running had he made the decision that he would not run in the campaign.
They would have had a primary.
They would have it wouldn't have been
Selection.
Yeah, I don't even think with Kamala's selection, it was still like a round robin. Should we use her? It wasn't automatic that she would have been the nominee. It wasn't because she was vice president. Huh?
But not having an open primary was a concern to a number of voters.
Yeah, that was a fault of Biden.
And the thing is, with the primary, a lot more people would have gotten contact with the people being chosen, with the candidates. So the problem that Kamala found herself in at the beginning, right, was that a lot of people weren't sure
familiar with her work
of what is it she's standing for.
Yeah.
Because people know her as standing behind Biden, but nobody knew her as standing for herself and what she believed in and stood for. As a matter of fact, after she became vice president for Biden, there was a period of time when she was almost in oblivion. It's like we weren't hearing about her. It's as if she had no role in the government, right? So
but to be honest, in the way American system run, the vice president is unknown. I don't see like the man under Trump, the guy who was under Trump. The only time you know him is when in the rioting when them said them going to hang him.
No man, that's not true, John. That's not true, John.
How was he known during the time?
Al Gore was known. Al Gore was known. Al Gore?
Yeah, Al Gore is probably the exception. Because Al Gore came out about the climate change. Is the main man that educate me on climate change.
Well, a time like this, you see, I seen a comment about 209 million whites, 64 million Hispanics, and 41 million blacks. And it put me in the mind of Marcus Garvey, because it was a time when the black people in the 1920s, it was World War One, racism, all kind of things happening in America. And the black people, it was actually, I guess they said, triggered by the blacks fighting in the war. That's why I said I want to know how much people in the army, because it was the blacks in the army who returned from the war and demanded change. And that created the great migration from the south to these northern cities that become the democratic base. Because as Mike said, all of the democratic strongholds are the cities. And those cities are driven by the 41 million, the 219 million, them spread across the middle of America. But we are the blacks. The blacks are in the cities. And the cities are where the commerce, the media, like you look in the middle of America, if you fly from New York to California, all you see is bush. And, until you reach a coast, you see another scenario. But what I'm saying, what I was reflecting, is that philosophies can rise in these type of situations that affect a nation like America. Because when those black people in the 20s there said back to Africa under Marcus Garvey, there was a panic in the society to think that this labor was going to leave. So even though you had whites, the white colonization society, who wanted the blacks to leave, the business, the economy of the country, as Las was saying, depends on this labor, right? And depends, again, I return to consumerism. These 41 million black people probably buy more things than the 219 million white, right? So I'm just bringing it to bear because I saw the numbers a while ago. And I remember what the movement of the black people, how it changed the whole nature of America, where they go, what they do, how they do. Their majority effect is not seen in numbers, but seen in the way that they are the bloodline of America. And right now, with the African continent rising in its power in relation to its journey in the civilization, meaning they're going to be like one of the largest continents of people in the next go round, like the next decade. They're projecting that the African continent is going to be as huge as how they talk about the Indian or the Chinese have all these billions of people, right? And if these people on the African continent who have the resources that the American continent and Elon Musk and all of these people need, the minerals of Africa and the energy to run their new internet society, because people have to realize how much energy this internet or this blockchain or this cryptocurrency, whatever they're coming with, it requires unprecedented access to energy and certain type of resources to run. And so we have to be, I'm just conscious of it. that we played this game before in the 1920s with the Honorable Marcus Garvey as a Jamaican, like Kamala Harris, affecting the American society based on if the black people in America feel or are made to feel that they are being targeted or going back to the Jim Crow and all of this crap. It's not going to be, I'm just bringing the fear factor home. Meaning
Okay.
it's not a fear like, oh, no.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we can expect corporates to be part of the resistance, because when the deportation start, there to be a shortage of workers in certain
Yeah.
industries. And I point to the geriatric economy in Florida, which depends largely on Asian and Jamaican, home health aid. So that's one thing. So all is not lost. So I want to. It seems like there's not much more we can say about this topic. You know, we just
There's
have.
been an earthquake in Jamaica. We should speak on it here.
When is that?
Huh?
When was that?
Just about 4 hours ago.
What
There's a massive earthquake
what information
by
you can
Cuba.
share?
Huh?
What information you can share on the earthquake?
Just that there was a 6.8
What?
earthquake just below
6?
Santiago de Cuba that
Oh,
was felt in Jamaica, 2 back to back. So
earthquake.
everybody's feeling kind of shook. Most of it was felt in Cuba, but Jamaica felt it significantly.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's like 50 miles from Cuba.
Yeah, where that fault
Six,
line is.
yeah, 6.7 on them number. They are high number that.
High numbers. Yeah, they were. Yeah. So
Very
we can.
high numbers.
Yes.
Well,
High
let
numbers.
us keep our fingers crossed, no? That nobody is
Yes.
injured. That we can do. And oh man, there's always something happening when it comes to Jamaica. On that note, I want to thank each and every one of you for a lovely discussion today. I know certainly we didn't answer all the questions and the concern that everyone has about the new Trump administration. I think what John said is correct. We have to keep the fight going. We have to stand up for rights. We cannot roll over with a Trump administration. We have to defend our rights. And now is a good time to think about becoming friend with a lawyer, because the legal community going to be very, very critical as we go into this period. Make sure you have a lawyer. You have a number where you can reach a lawyer.
On that note, you can look up America Civil Liberties Union, ACLU.
Yeah, that is a good connection.
And that's what.
That is a good connection, good suggestion. ACLU.
You're very good at your job.
Can you tell the listeners about it?
Yeah, ACLU.
Yeah, what is it about?
Sorry? ACLU is America Civil Liberties Union, and they are the main organization that will fight in regard to all different areas of civil liberty, whether it's police brutality, voting rights, etc.
And you're saying that you suggest what?
People, we should look it up. I contribute to them. I've had a good experience of them personally, but I'm suggesting that we can all go online and look up for ACLU, American Civil Liberties Union.
Okay. Is there an option to become a member?
Yeah, that you can get the newspapers. You give a donation. You can give like how you give money to the Democratic Party, and it never really come to anything.
Yeah.
You can give money to ACLU, and they will send you some material. I get a journal from them every month, but I also contribute. I'm on the. I am a giver for them, just like how I give to the American Cancer Society.
Okay. You don't give to the Democratic Party, John?
I give too much.
Okay. On that note, bro, let me repeat it, bro. I want to thank you all for a wonderful discussion. Next week, we're going to do it all over again. Hopefully, we're going to touch on something in Jamaica. I'm not sure, but I'm leaving it up to all of you to make suggestions as to the type of topic you'd like us to discuss here at the Waterhouse Roundtable. Anyone who have any comments? Any final comments?
My final comment is a movement coming out of Korea being taken up by American women that they won't be having any more sex with men. They're straight. They're not lesbian. They're straight women
John,
because they said that
John cover his
Maxine.
face.
no more sex, no more marriage, no more nothing because they abortion something with them put up. They say they don't they have to refuse all of that, and then they will see what happened. No birth rate, no this, no that.
John,
This
I
is
know
the woman. This is the woman or the men. I didn't hear you.
So hold on, Maxine. Them blaming regular man for that.
Yes, because it's the men who vote in the man. All those men who vote in Trump, they can now know that they're off the sex list.
I voted for the woman.
So what to the one them in a vote? What them have the list too?
Them get
Oh
suspended.
Lord, that's a good point. That should be a
That's troubling.
we soon hear that come up here in America.
Yeah, but
Yes.
you're a better one than that. You heard about the African in Guinea with
Yes, yes,
400 women.
yes.
Oh,
Say what? Say what?
The Guinea, the guy in Guinea, with
finance
over
minister in Guinea, some finance man.
400 women.
But the 400 were all part of the political elite.
All part of the political elite. Prime Minister wife, his brother-in-law, everything. He was a village ram. That is it. So, but that is enough for the evening. And we'll talk next week. And again,
All
thank
right.
you very much. And remember, the listeners, like, share, and tell a friend about this platform, Waterhouse Vibes. Every Sunday, we're doing it from 3 o'clock every Sunday evening. Walk
All right.
good,
Bless up.
stay strong. Bless up to everyone. Cool.
Bless up.
Yes, I.